Well, we're continuing on our sermon series talking about spiritual disciplines. We're getting near the end. Today I'm going to be talking about simplicity. This coming Sunday, Pastor Tyler is going to be talking about service. And 2 weeks from today, April will conclude with submission. But today we're looking at that topic of simplicity. And I think that each and every one of us, somewhere along the line, and maybe all the time, have sat down and thought, life is just too complicated. Things are just too complex. I wish life was a little simpler. And yet as we look at that, do we have the slides for the sermon? No. I'm crushed. Anyway, we'll continue. As we're looking at this whole topic, reflecting upon the gospel lesson for this day, gospel from Luke chapter 12, and Jesus says, "Watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." Again, the need for us to simplify in our lives, to make our lives a little more simple. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, our second lesson, "But godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it." Really looking at making our lives simple. And as I was preparing this message, I looked and I saw there was 5 principles for simplicity that I wanted to present. 5 principles that really would enable us to make our lives simple. And the first principle is to buy for usefulness, not for status. We've all heard that expression, keeping up with the Joneses, whoever they are. They're the people that, they get something a little better, and so you have to get something a little better than them, and then, it's kind of a vicious cycle as it continues. In Philippians chapter 4, St. Paul says this to the church of Philippi. He says, "I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances. I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength." I've learned how to be content. Living life through contentment. And as I was reflecting upon this back in the early 70s when I went to seminary, and seminary is that school you go to after college in order to learn how to become a pastor, I had a friend, Tom Meakin, and he had an interesting philosophy about automobiles. And he said, "I buy a car for me, not for other people." And so as I recall, he drove pretty much basic transportation. I think I recall it was a Plymouth Valiant that he drove. And both he and I were single at the time. We're not talking about a chick magnet here, this Plymouth Valiant. Pretty basic transportation. And I remember him saying that, and I was driving a old 62 Buick Special at the time, which was pretty much rusted all the way out along the sides, and was soon to be rusted out in the floorboards too, but that's another story, and dents all over. But the hood was pristine. And I thought, that's all I can see. I'm fine with this. Who cares about what everyone else is looking at when I'm driving down the road? John Lewis, our pastoral intern, teaches Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University course. And last summer, my wife and I took it. And Dave Ramsey says that we oftentimes buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. We need to buy for what's useful for us and not status. Now, I want to back up a little bit. As I'm going through the sermon, I'm using a lot of illustrations from my own life. But I want to send the message, what I've done and what I do is not necessarily for you. And I want to say for sure, I'm not up here kind of holier than thou. I am so good. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get to some places that I'm not even practicing what I preach. that's not good, you know. I guess you've heard it now. But anyway, as far as automobiles, when I was a pastor, when I was first a pastor, my first 6 cars cost $900. Not a piece. All 6. $900. You kind of see what I was driving then. I will say that I've recovered a little bit from that. I do drive a brand new car now. It was brand new in 2001 when I bought it. My PT Cruiser has 218,000 miles on it, and I'm going for 300. But and it's looking pretty good still. It's not a rust bucket or anything like that. But we need to think in terms of buying for usefulness, not for status. The second message that we have here, the second principle, is to de-accumulate. As we look at Proverbs chapter 11, and this is our first lesson for this day. One man gives freely, yet gains even more. People curse the man who hoards. And here's where my slides were really going to come in. My wife is the one at home that operates the remote control and kind of surfing through things, and once in a while we stop on something, and it's usually what she'd like to see. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Hoarders. If you haven't, I don't know if it's on A&E or whatever, and obviously you can't see that. I have 3 slides here which you can't see of houses of hoarders, and it was just junk that was just accumulated. It was just incredible. And I mean, it just almost makes you ill, and people just couldn't part with those things. And it was the end of 1983, I took a trip to Southern California, and I visited the missions, a number of the missions. There's 21 missions that were established by the Padres, the monks along California, from San Diego all the way up to San Francisco, and I made it up to a little north of Los Angeles, visiting the different missions. They're really interesting, and I saw one at the San Luis Rey, the mission there. It was just about 3.5 miles east of Oceanside, California, and as I looked there, they had a replica of what a monk's room looked like, and if you have your binoculars, you can see that it's pretty much just a bed, a little washstand, his alb and his hat up on the wall, and that was it. And I remember thinking, wouldn't that be great if life was that simple? And I thought that would be so great. Now, this is where I'm bringing up Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7, Jesus says, don't take the speck of sawdust out of your neighbor's eye until you first take the plank out of your own eye. And it was 5 years ago I preached a sermon talking about relying upon God. And as a part of it, I had 9 slides showing the basement that Marge and I live in. Or we don't live in the basement of the house that I moved into 6 years ago when Marge and I got married. And it just one after another, the slides were of shelves with stuff on them, accumulated. It was, this is where the plank is in my own eye. I'm not a hoarder. Well, okay, maybe I am, but I'm an organized hoarder, I guess. But, I guess we're seeing them now. Do we have the binoculars for everyone to, take a peek at there? I mean, this is just kind of going around. We can go a little quicker than this, just kind of one after another. This is all, and then we bought a townhouse, and one of the pluses, they said, the townhouse has a lot of storage. That wasn't a plus. Everything just moved over there. And so I think there's probably, a really, a medium between this. Well, okay, I was going through some of the stuff that, I really couldn't get rid of. And, like, I had my dad's 1927, 1928 Luther College catalog that tells what courses to take, what the fees are, you know, he has signed it, you know, his address, Sherman, South Dakota, and everything. You know, a semester tuition, Luther College, $62.50. And if for a room, it was $25 for the room. And then, oh yeah, I had a ticket to Nebraska Cornhuskers against Nevada in September of 2007. You know, you can't get rid of that. Back in the late 70s, I started making models. I made models as a kid, and I made a bunch of models of cars, you know, and this is a 1927 Mercedes-Benz SSK. You know, can you really part with something like this? I doubt it. Well, now we're getting to some questionable. I have the complete year of Consumer Reports from 1991. You know, if I want to, you know, buy a washing machine, I can look up, but maybe not. When I first became a pastor in 1974, the congregation from suburban Chicago that I grew up in, the ladies of the congregation gave me this cross pen set, marble, real nice pen, Holy Trinity Lutheran Church Women to George Megard. I haven't used this for, I mean, does anyone use cross pens? I mean, the refills never worked when you had them back then. I don't know, but I still have it. My dad, last car he bought was a 1976 Ford Granada. Then my mom had it, and then she gave it to me. My son wrecked it about 1995, but I still have the shop manual to it. And, you know, it just, I tell you, there's no way in the world I'm ever going to get another Ford Granada, but here it is on the shelf. And it was like 6 years ago that I sold my motorcycle, but you just never know when you might get another one, and so my helmet was here. And then I have a cousin whose son didn't help me out because a couple of years ago he gave me a couple of pictures, and oh man, they're big now. I can't believe it. This is my grandma's brother, Andrew Larsgaard, who is a pastor, not is, certainly, was a pastor in Norway. I thought I was the only one, and I've come from a line of pastors now, at least one, and he had another picture of him too. I tell you, if you can come up later and look close into this guy's eyes, I don't know, if you had to go into counseling or something, you wouldn't go to this guy. His eye just kind of burned right through you. But, you know, things that you just can't get rid of.